Claude Code now has two completely different ways to run multiple AI agents at once. And if you pick the wrong one, you're either burning tokens for nothing or leaving massive productivity on the table. There are now two completely different ways to run multiple AIs inside Claude Code, subagents and agent teams. They sound similar, but they work in totally different ways, and choosing the wrong one can cost you real money. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which one to use for any task, and I'll demo both live so you can see the difference for yourself. And spoiler alert, you're almost never going to want to use agent teams. Let's get into it. So here's the problem. You're working in Claude Code, and you ask it to do something big. You'd like to review your code base, run tests, and update documentation all at once. With a single agent, you hit three walls. First, it's sequential. It only does one of these at a time. Review the tests, then the docs. You're sitting there waiting while it plods through each task in order. Number two, it loses context. By the time it gets to your documentation, it's already forgotten the details from the code review. One agent trying to hold your entire project in its head at once. These things just start slipping through the cracks. And number three, it runs out of room. Every AI model has a context window, and one agent doing everything fills it up fast. The more you pile on, the worse each individual task gets. So parallelization seems like the obvious answer, but here's where it gets interesting. Anthropic built two totally different systems for this, and it can be confusing which one to use. So let's break them both down. So you can kind of think of sub-agents as hiring freelancers. So you have multiple people doing different tasks in isolation and they report back to you. So on the sub-agent model, you spawn multiple sub-agents from the main agent itself. They do the work, they get the result, and they report back to you. So this gets around that kind of sequential and context kind of issues that we have just using one agent. And with this, you get some powerful controls. So you can limit what each sub-agent can do. So if you want a read-only code reviewer, you can just give it access to just read and grep tools, nothing else. It physically cannot modify your files. Secondly, model selection. You can choose to run agents on cheaper models for like quick exploration tasks. So you could use Haiku or Sonnet and reserve Opus for the complex stuff. So just doing that alone can cut your token cost significantly. And third, of course, parallelization. You can fire off multiple agents at the same time, research agents, test agents, document agents, all running simultaneously, all reporting back to your main session. Sub-agents are perfect when you need focused independent tasks. Just a quick note before we move on to agent teams. If you want the full quick start guide for setting up both of these, plus my personal agent configurations, I've got them in the AI Creator Monetization Lab. It's just $9 a month. The link is in the description. So if sub-agents are like hiring freelancers, you could argue that agent teams is like hiring a startup team. So the difference here is that the main agent spawns the team as a group rather than individual agents. And they have a shared task list that they can kind of all work from. And quite importantly is that they all communicate with each other. So they can pass, so rather than just passing everything back to you for you to assimilate and then continue sharing that information as is needed with your other agents, the teammates can all communicate with each other in real time. There's a few things to know about agent teams though. They're experimental right now, so you need a Claude Code version of 2.1.32 or later, and you have to enable a feature flag in order to get it to work. They use significantly more tokens than sub-agents because each teammate is a full Claude Code session running independently. So I'm going to make the case for agent teams use cases here, but I would argue, quite often using sub-agents might still be optimal. So with that said, agent teams shine when the work requires collaboration. So cross-layer development where front-end, back-end and test all need to stay in sync. Debugging complex issues where multiple hypotheses needs to be explored and discussed. Code reviews where security, performance and test coverage reviewers need to challenge each other's findings. And I must admit, I struggle when I try to think about where I'd want to use agent teams outside of a development scenario. So all the demos you'll see online are using agent teams within a development team kind of scenario. And I try and think about how can I use this in kind of a marketing capacity or in some other capacity. I must admit, I just drew blank. I just could not think of a way where agent teams could be used, because when you boil it down, actually the parallelization is really good and really useful. And and that, you know, you have that in Subagents. But generally, when I looked at any other kind of scenario and boiled it down, all it really came to was that, you know, I'd only ever want to use Subagents and not agent teams. So if you can think of a good reason why you want to use agent teams outside of a development scenario, I'd love to hear them. Stick them in the comments and we can have a chat about that. But the truth is, agent teams suffer from like way more like issues with, you know, losing context through the more layers that you kind of have, the additional tokens that are needed every time you hand things off. But I'm not going to touch on that any further today. I'll save that for my next video. So if you're interested in watching that and the video is not out yet, then you can subscribe to make sure you get it. Otherwise, I'll link it up here so that you can check it out as well. With that said, let's get on to the Subagents and agent teams demo. Okay, for this demo, we're going to build a code review subagent, an AI reviewer that can look at your code but physically cannot change anything. Then we'll fire off 3 subagents in parallel to see the real speed advantage. Okay, so you're going to need to run this in terminal to access agents. So I'm going to run Claude here. Go to agents. Create a new agent, and then you can choose personal or project. So project means that this agent is just available within this project, and personal means that it's available across all of your projects. So I'm just going to go project for this one. Generate with Claude, and then I'm going to paste in a code reviewer that reads through files and flags issues with readability, performance and security. It should explain each problem clearly and suggest a fix. Read only, it cannot modify files. So it's generating an agent from that description. Okay, so in here I can select read-only tools. So I'm going to get rid of these tools here. Let's just select read-only tools. Click continue. So here I'm going to pick Sonnet, which is fast enough to scan lots of files, but smart enough to catch any real issues. And here you can choose a color. So let's go with green. Now we can review the agent before we go ahead and save that. So we can see we've got the name, we've got the tools that you can use, we can see the model, we can see the description, we can see the system prompt. So I can press S or enter to save. And we can see that we created the code reviewer agent. If we go up here, we can go ahead and take a look at the agent too. So we can see the code reviewer agent here. We can see all the instructions we saw before, the settings at the top, and then the instructions there down below. So you can open this up manually if you want and make any edits. You don't need to like make any code changes, or of course you can just ask Claude to make some changes as well. So I'm just going to get a code base created here so that we can just demo some of this. So I'm going to ask Claude to create a demo code base for the creation of a React component. So now to call the code reviewer agent, I just need to set something like this. Use the code reviewer to review the files in demo, look for security issues and anything that could cause performance problems. So you can see that we've now spun up an instance of the code reviewer here. It's checking these files. Okay, so that took about a minute to come back, and you can see that we've got the findings here, and overall it says, you know, the code is clean, not surprisingly because it's very minimal code base. So say you've got a code base and you want to do 3 different checks, you know, all at the same time. So I'm just going to paste it up here. I'm going to put it down here. It's just it doesn't show the text here so you can see it. So review my project from 3 angles in parallel. Use the code reviewer to check demo for security issues. Spawn a sub-agent to scan for to-do comments and unfinished work. And 3, spawn a sub-agent to check test coverage, which functions are missing tests. So if I go and paste this down here and click enter. So you can see we've got 3 agents running now. We've got our code reviewer, and then we've got these 2 other agents here doing the other work that we asked for. So one's scanning the to-dos and one's doing the test coverage. Okay, so all 3 agents are finished now. So it took about the same amount of time, just under a minute, but of course we had 3 agents running in parallel there doing work. So we can see there are security review results are here, the to-do and unfinished work is here, so there's none found, no surprises there. And then number 3, the test coverage. So 0%, no test file exist. So that's subagents, you know, create a specialist, give it specific tools, fire it off, or fire off 3 at once if you like. They work independently and report back. It's fast, it's cheap, and it's focused. But notice, those 3 researchers never talk to each other. They didn't need to. Each one had a clear independent job. Now let me show you what happens when agents do need to talk to each other. So for agent teams, here's the scenario. You're building a contact form feature for your web app. You need three things to happen at once: the front end component, the back end API, and the test suite. And they all need to stay in sync, because if the front end sends fields that the back end doesn't expect, or the test check for responses that don't exist yet, everything breaks. This is where a sub-agents would fail you. If you sent three sub-agents off independently, the front end might send a phone field, while the back end only accepts email and message. The test might check for a 201 response code when the back end returns 200. Nothing lines up. So agent teams resolve this because the agents can talk to each other while they're building. Now, of course, if I put my sub-agents hat on again there, then the argument should be that this is all spec'd out ahead of time, so these people can run in parallel, but you haven't, if you've spec'd this out, then they don't need to talk to each other. Like, they already know what fields are going to be sent back. So again, even with this contrived kind of example of agent teams and how you could use them, I still struggle with the fact that do you really need agent teams for this task? Okay, so I'm just going to escape out of this. So you just need to check that you have the right version. So you need to be on 21.1.32 or later, which I am. And as I mentioned, agent teams is an experimental feature at the moment. So you do need to go and add a Claude.json file. That includes the following information here. So I'm just going to ask Claude to go and create that for us. Back into Claude. Paste that in. Okay, so this has been created. It says you'll need to restart Claude for the environment variables to take effect. So I'm just going to quit out of that. Restart Claude. Okay, so now I'm going to ask Claude to create me an agent team. So it's going to look like this. Build a contact form feature for our web app. Create an agent team. Teammate 1 builds the front end React component with name, email, message fields, and validation. Teammate 2 build the backend API endpoint that receives the form data, validates it, and stores it in the database. Teammate 3 write integration tests covering form submission, validation errors, and edge cases. Critical: the front end fields must match with the backend, but the backend expects. The test assertions must match the actual API responses. If any teammate changes the schema, they need to tell each other immediately. So let's go ahead and do this. So you can see our main agent is the orchestrator here of this. So it said this is a bare project. I'll first establish a shared contract so all three teammates use the same schema, then launch them in parallel. Okay, so now we can see I'll create a shared contract, so it's done that, and it's now said shared contract is ready, now launching all three teammates in parallel. You can see it's running two agents there. Hopefully there'll be a third one shortly. There you go, all three agents are running: front end, back end, and test. Okay, we can see that now completed. So we can see that all three teammates finished their code and it's fully aligned. So it was just checking when they finished, that it was verifying that there was a contract alignment. And it's given us a nice table here to show that actually the front end, the back end, and test kind of all line up. Now, because it created this contact schema at the start, I've no idea whether they actually communicated with each other, those agents, or whether they all just worked in parallel and followed that schema. I suspect they did that, but I guess they might have checked with each other. But we can't tell in this view, but there is a view where you can see all agents working at the same time. You can see them messaging between each other. Okay, then, to summarize, most of the time you're just going to need sub-agents. Unless you really need the team to communicate with each other, you've already got parallel working with sub-agents, and that's what you're going to use most of the time. As I said before, there's like multiple problems with agent teams and spooling these things off and to sort of autonomously work between themselves. Any issues could be exasperated by having these agent teams that don't have a human in the loop. But I'll explain that more in my next video, so stay subscribed for that. But if you want the full setup guide, check out our community at school.com/AI Lab Pro. It's only $9 a month to stay ahead in AI. I'll see you in the next one.